Okay, so kia ora everyone, and thank you for this opportunity to present our opinion to our submission to you. My name is Matthew Bradbury. I'm Associate Professor and Discipline Lead for Landscape Architecture program at the School of Architecture at Unitec in Auckland. We're one of three accredited institutions that teach landscape architecture in New Zealand. So I'm representing Tuia Pito Ora, the New Zealand Institute of Landscape Architects. We are an internationally recognised professional body of qualified landscape architects in New Zealand. Our objective is to promote the profession of landscape architecture throughout New Zealand and to promote the appropriate and sustainable protection, planning, design, intervention, and management of our landscapes. We engage collaboratively with all communities in Aotearoa, New Zealand, within a treaty context. We draw upon Mātauranga Māori, modern science, and professional expertise, sharing within a worldwide network of landscape architects and institutions. I'm also a member of the Climate Change Working Group. One of our tasks is to help our members to understand, mitigate, and adapt to the environmental effects of climate change. And we're doing this through writing a series of guidelines for our members to understand, mitigate, and adapt to the environmental impacts and effects of climate change. We're doing this through writing a series of practice guidelines. The writing will be indigenously led in collaboration with Te Tanuku, the Maori landscape architects, Ropu. And we believe that this will be the first Indigenous-led and informed guidelines for landscape architects. So I guess getting on to our kind of submission and the inquiry, obviously the inquiry is about developing and recommending objectives, principles for designing a climate change adaptation model through policy and legislation. And I guess a lot of the discussion, the conversation around adaptation is in this language of policy and of legislation. That's the remit of the inquiry, obviously. It's a narrative of various reports like the Ministry of Environment's report on managed retreat, around this. These are excellent documents that Environment Defence Society have produced. I guess what landscape architects in New Zealand are doing, and both in New Zealand and internationally, is more at the kind of sharp end of things, more at the kind of working out practical measures and techniques we can take to adapt our cities, towns, and countryside to meet the challenges of climate change. I guess this can be framed well, for us, it's framed in a couple of ways. Landscape architects are working on specific climate change-driven conditions by working with what we call nature-based solutions. That's looking to nature to help us mitigate the effects of climate change. I'm going to talk about two examples in a minute, and we can put these individual solutions and strategies within a larger structure, which we sometimes call a green infrastructure, which is, I think, I talk about in our submission. So what I want to do now is to talk about two examples of how landscape architects have been developing strategies to build resilience to climate change and specifically river flooding, and then just discuss the recommendations that we've made that we believe will help New Zealand proceed to help us adapt to climate change. So one critical problem for us is how to reduce the impact of increased flooding from rivers. And the traditional approach has obviously been to build stop banks alongside rivers, and when in doubt, build them higher. But is this really a sustainable approach? I guess a good example of a landscape-based approach to this problem is in the Netherlands, the Making Room for Rivers project. And this started in 2007. The Dutch government started this program. The main goal was to obviously allow for river flooding, but not by increasing the height of the stop banks, but by creating and in many ways restoring the original floodplains that crossed the Netherlands, relocating stop banks, expanding the depth of side channels, constructing flood bypasses. There's over 30 projects have been built now. By the end of 2018, the complete program is supposed to be completed a couple of years ago, not quite yet, but landscape architects have been instrumental in not only ensuring the successful engineered outcomes of these rivers, but also in the way these new corridors can become new public spaces. I guess the other example in New Zealand, in Tamaki in Auckland, we've had, as you all know, we had terrible flooding on the anniversary day 2023, and a contributing factor to that was the way in which the existing network of streams and wetlands and Tamaki had been buried over the last 150 years. They've been buried under roads, under sports fields, and by placing the streams into pipes and culverts. And of course, Mana Whenua and Tamaki knew where all the streams and wetlands were. We just have to look at the place names in Auckland, begin with Y, to I think it's over like 60 entries to know that Auckland's very watery. But as a result, of course, of the downpour, the old streams came back and headed for the harbour, regardless of what had been built. Obviously, this flooding is going to happen again. It's going to be worse the next time. And to help mitigate these effects, Healthy Waters, the Auckland Council agency, has integrated a new stream restoration program, Making Space for Waters, and they've embarked on a $1 billion program to open up and restore Tamaki's awa to help prevent flooding to the surrounding neighbourhoods. So these are two examples of landscape-led approaches into how we can adapt to what climate change is going to bring us. Landscape architects are helping with these two projects by seeing the problem in a holistic, nature-based way, because of course climate change is not just going to be flooding. It's also going to be getting hotter, so we need to plant trees. We're going to start losing biodiversity, so we have to replant indigenous vegetation. And there's also an opportunity to also make public space. So landscape architects are kind of able to take these things that we need to do and actually put them into a kind of holistic solution and strategy. And we've been working on projects and important projects in Auckland already that we've been doing these things. A great example is the work in the Upper Te Ona and Walmsley Reserve, where the awa has been taken out of a concrete channel and renaturalized with indigenous planting. They built a playground and a stream side walk. How am I going for time?
Yeah, no, you're good. I've got a few hands up there, so perhaps you may like to take some questions now, Matthew. Megan Woods has got her hand up there, has a question.
No worries. So I was going to go through recommendations, but the recommendations are in the submission. So
yes, that's right. Yes.
Yeah.
No.
Cool. Yeah.
Thank you, Matthew. Just two quick questions. One is around the green infrastructure. And I liked your examples of Auckland, the work that we've done in both Northcote and Roskill as part of the Climate Ora large-scale projects, stop flooding in those areas. But really what I'm interested in is your perspective on the capacity and capability of councils around understanding how green infrastructure can fit within their asset management and their asset base, because it is more complex in terms of asset management plans and how it's kind of accounted for. The other is whether or not our planning laws, from your perspective, are enabling enough to allow developers and councils to do things like swales and retention basins rather than pipes.
Yeah. So two big questions. I mean, I guess the first one about asset management. I mean, I think it is really a really kind of a way of reconceptualizing what assets the council does have. So rather than, we have a whole lot of parks, a whole little reserves, a whole lot of little waterways, actually, if we start seeing what the council has within that larger landscape. And do you
think we have the capacity and capability within local government, or do you think that's something that we might
No, absolutely. No, absolutely. Yeah. No, I think we have. I think we've got the ability. It's just a really a way that council and council officers really need to see those assets, within that larger landscape. And we call them catchments. And and I think this is what Healthy Waters project is so interesting, is you're actually seeing these little bits that the council owns and seeing how they can be connected up. And then we can start getting some solutions.
Cool.
And
the enabling is our planning infrastructure enabling enough to do this, or is it a fad?
Yeah, that's another question, isn't it? Because I mean, obviously RMA is kind of all being thrown up in the air. So who quite knows what's going to come out of that one? But yeah, I mean, but I think we all realise that climate change is the issue, So we are going to have to start getting some legislation, planning work around that.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Matthew. We have met time now, so we will keep moving as we have other submitters waiting. But thank you very much for your.
No problem. Thanks very much for hearing us. Thank you.
Thank you.